Just take a look at this beauty. The British L119, now being used by Ukrainian forces, has become the main rival to the Soviet D-30. But is Western artillery really fit for a war where the barrel barely gets a break from constant firing? Ukrainian gunners have their doubts. We went to Germany for 6 days of training. We asked, what if we fire 200 shells a day? What should we do? How does the barrel hold up? And the American says, pour water on it. Then he comes back half an hour later and goes, actually, we've never fired that much. We might have told you something stupid. British and American forces usually use their L118 and L119 Howitzers to support light infantry or air mobile units. The main difference between the two is the type of ammo they fire. L118 uses 105mm shells that only Britain keeps in stock. But L119 can fire rounds that are available across many NATO countries. That's a big reason why Ukrainian artillery crews received L119s. Because it's way easier to find enough ammo when you can tap into the stockpiles of dozens of partners, instead of relying on one country. And in the war against Russia, the rule is simple. The more shells artillery has, the safer the infantry feels. You feel the weight of that responsibility, especially if you've served in the infantry. You know how important it is, when the enemy's coming at you in force, to have support behind you. So giving Ukraine the L119s was a pretty smart move. Smash that like button if you agree. It helps boost the channel and lets us make more content like this for you. But having enough ammo is only half the battle. Can the gun barrel actually take the stress it's under on the battlefield? The American instructors who trained Ukrainians weren't sure, but the reality turned out to be a lot more interesting. My crew's always lucky. We usually fire 50 rounds a day, sometimes up to 100. Our record? One gun fired 206 shells in a single day. That was during the Wagner breakthrough. We were covering our battalion and holding them off. On paper, the L118 Howitzer can fire 6 rounds per minute for the first 2 minutes, then 3 rounds per minute during sustained fire over half an hour. But what about real combat? Well, pretty impressive actually. During the Falklands War, British forces managed to fire up to 400 shells a day from a standard L118. So it's safe to say the L119, which is basically the same gun with NATO ammo, holds up just as well. In terms of performance, the L119 is often compared to the Soviet D-30 and the two S1 Gvozdika self-propelled gun, both in the 122mm category. Sure, those pack a bigger punch, but their barrels? Not even close to the condition of a well-kept L119. The big advantage is the barrel. That's where the accuracy comes from, and that's the biggest strength of this howitzer. And when shells are limited, accuracy is a huge deal. We can hit targets much more effectively than with the older Soviet stuff. Those worn-out D-30 barrels just couldn't deliver the accuracy we needed for fortified positions. Of course, there's a catch. The 105mm shell used in the L119 isn't as powerful as a 122mm one, which can carry up to 4 kilos of explosives. But still, we take one precise hit over a dozen shots that miss. Soviet barrels may rain down more shells, but that doesn't always mean better results. One underrated perk of the L119? Its low silhouette. The smaller size makes it harder for the enemy to spot. And if things get hot, the crew can pack up and vanish in no time. It's fast to set up, fast to pack down. The whole process is just smooth and easy. Also, and this might surprise you, the L119 is way quieter than its Soviet counterparts. That means less ringing in your ears and a lower chance of giving away your position. It's just super quiet. You almost can't hear the shot. It doesn't rattle your skull like the old Soviet gear. Even the Russians have taken notice. Though, maybe not in the way they'd like. Sometimes it's actually kind of nice hearing their intercepted comms. It's coming from somewhere, but we have no idea where. At night, when drones are buzzing above the front lines, artillery positions are easy to spot thanks to the muzzle flash that lights up with every shot. But here's a surprise, the L119 barely flashes at all. You can imagine the starry-eyed look on Ukrainian soldiers' faces when they found that out. I used to work with the D-30. The L119's got a few advantages. The D-30 gives off a huge flash at night, but this British one? Barely any. You just can't see it in the dark. It doesn't give away your position. Another big plus? The L119 is noticeably lighter than its Soviet counterparts. a fact that logistic teams are very happy about. Hit that subscribe button if you want more stories like this. Real war, real gear, no fluff. Western armies usually tow it with trucks or high-mobility vehicles, but that's not all. You can sling it under a UH-60 helicopter, or even fly 2 of them at once with a CH-47. And if the chopper can't land, no problem. They can airdrop it with parachutes. Ukraine isn't doing large-scale airborne ops just yet, but artillery units still benefit from how easy it is to move these guns around with a Humvee. Fast, nimble, gets the job done. It weighs 1,900 kilos. The D-30? Almost a ton heavier. This thing you can literally move by hand. 2 people are enough to spin it around. That weight advantage really shines in mobile defense. When Russian FPV drones are hunting you non-stop, or jets are dropping massive bombs in your sector, staying in one spot is just asking for trouble. How fast you move could mean life or death. We're just sitting there with the gun, the Humvee pulls up and boom, cabs incoming, that's it. Your life now depends on luck, or maybe an FPV spots the gun in the Humvee. That's a priority target for them. Distance from the front line used to mean something, not anymore. Thanks to FPVs, even rear positions aren't safe, and the D-30's extra range doesn't count for much. Up front, there's only one rule. You're a target. If you don't want to get hit, hide well or move fast. I'd rather hit the enemy more effectively than sit further back. There's barely a difference between being 12 or 15 kilometers away. Those long-range FPVs hit D-30s just the same, and they can hit our gun too. The L119 Howitzer is pretty easy to maintain and doesn't give artillery crews much trouble. It rarely breaks down and usually only needs serious repairs after being hit by shrapnel, which, let's be honest, can happen to anyone in this war. All we do is clean it and oil it. If something major breaks, we just send it back to the company. The L119 showed up on the front lines of the Russian-Ukrainian war back in 2022. Since then, they've been used both in defense and to support offensives against Russian positions. They're mostly used against infantry because it takes the shell 30 seconds to travel 10 kilometers, so it's hard to hit moving vehicles. We mostly aim at buildings, stationary equipment, troops, or clusters of enemy forces. But the more skilled Ukrainian gunners don't let that stop them. If drone operators give them the right coordinates, they're quick to fire even at fast-moving targets, like a Russian stormtrooper riding a quad bike. We've hit a Russian tractor with the howitzer, and one spring, we scored a hit on a tank, all moving targets. We've also landed shots on Russian ATVs and motorcycles. Since the start of the full-scale invasion, Ukraine's allies have delivered around 50 L119s to the defense forces. From day one, they were deployed to support airborne units on the front lines, but every gun comes with its own age and barrel wear. The more you fire, the faster the barrel wears out, and the less accurate it becomes. To speed up repairs and keep these guns in the fight, Ukraine's government teamed up with global defense giant BAE Systems. The company has opened a local branch to service the howitzers, produce spare parts, and even manufacture new ones. That's a big deal. It gives hope that towed artillery isn't ready for retirement just yet, and still has a major role to play in future wars. In fact, Ukraine's experience has already made NATO armies rethink their assumptions. Before Russia's full-scale invasion, many NATO countries had been gradually phasing out towed artillery in favor of wheeled and tracked platforms. The Cold War was over, armies were downsizing, and new doctrines were being written for smaller local conflicts. Western engineers also aimed to protect the crews operating these guns. That became especially urgent with the rise of counter-battery radar systems, which can pinpoint enemy firing positions with brutal accuracy. The idea was that an armored capsule would keep crews safe, but modern warfare introduced a new threat: drones capable of detonating ammunition stockpiles. And that forced a serious rethink of how towed artillery fits into the battlefield. Unlike big self-propelled systems, towed howitzers are compact, and that means easier camouflage at well-prepared firing positions. Their ammo is stored separately, so a direct drone hit is less likely to cause a catastrophic explosion. Meanwhile, crews can quickly duck into shelters, often dug and reinforced by the artillery teams themselves. Towed systems also have another key advantage. They're much cheaper and simpler to produce than self-propelled guns. That matters a lot during wartime, when you need to replace losses and equip new units fast. And in that context, the L119 stands out as a very practical choice. It's accurate, relatively affordable, and built to last. In short, it works. What topic should we cover next? Drop your ideas in the comments. We'll choose from the most liked ones.